Hi everyone, welcome back to day 3. We've had a look already at materials and we've already had a look at battle plans. Today I'm going to teach you about something really cool. We're going to learn all about Roman armour. So I'm going to take you over to my computer now so we can have a look. Let's go. Have a look at Roman armour. I want to have a quick look at when the Romans lived, because when they lived will have affected the way their armour looks. They'll have had different technology available to them, just like we do today. So their armour might have needed to be different, and the way they fought might have needed to be different. So let's have a look at where we are on this timeline. We're here in the contemporary age, and I've put our arrow pointing to the edge of the timeline because we're in 2020 and this timeline finishes in 2011. But as we know, time doesn't finish and it carries on. So while this timeline was drawn a few years ago, different things have happened since then. And throughout all of history, there have been hundreds of battles. Some have been huge and have involved the whole world. And some of you might have celebrated VE Day last Friday when we celebrate the end of World War II. But some other battles have been really, really small as well and have been just between towns or a few different areas rather than the whole world. And battles are fought for many, many different reasons as well throughout history. So let's take a step back in history a few hundred years. We're going to go to the modern age. This is when Hernán Cortés would have been around conquering lands for Spain. So definitely would have been some battles then. We're going to take a few more steps back to the medieval age. And this is when the Roman Empire fell and the medieval age began. And so our country was once under the rule of the Roman Empire, but the Roman Empire stopped having control of us and the medieval age began then, and there were quite a few battles here as well. And then we're going to step back a few more hundred years to the ancient age. This is where we will find our Romans. Now they didn't start being the Roman Empire in 3000 BC, that was way too long ago. But if you look at where I've put the arrow, the Roman Empire began around here towards the end of the ancient age and before the medieval age began. So we're going that far back in history to look at how Romans had their armour. And then I began to wonder if Roman armour would need to be different and what purpose it would have served and why it would have been important to them. So this is my next question. What does armour need to do? And I wonder if it would change over the years or not. But have a little think. Talk to someone. Come up with some ideas of what you think armour would need to do. Because we're going to be designing our own piece of armour soon. Or our own weapon for a Roman soldier. So we really have to understand why it's important to have armour. So pause and have a talk with someone in your house or write down a few ideas that you had and then we'll share some ideas together in a minute. Cool. Okay, well done everyone. I wonder if some of your ideas were the same as mine. Let's have a look. I thought the job that armour would have to do would be to protect my soldier from harm, because the Roman army would have marched for miles and miles and miles to carry out their battles, and the more men you have, the more power you have. So I want to protect as many of them as I could from harm. Then I thought it must need to be long-lasting, so it can be used again and again and again in battle. Because again, think, the Romans are marching far, far from home. It might be really hard to get more armour for them. So it needs to be made from a really strong material that isn't going to break easily. Then I thought it has to let the soldier move around freely. If they're trying to wield a sword or if they're trying to bend their arms and legs to run, they're going to need to have strong armour, but armour that's also flexible and lets them move. And it doesn't weigh them down too much because you want your army to be quick. I also thought it might be good if I used my armour to show which country my soldiers are from, which empire they belonged to. Because if they've heard of the Roman Empire, They might be afraid of us as soon as they see us, especially if they knew where we were coming from. So I want my armour to intimidate my enemies. I want to make them afraid. So I wonder if armour has been used in that way throughout history. Is it always strong? Is it always long-lasting? Does it help us to move around freely? Is it really heavy? Does it show which country they belong to? And do they use it to scare their enemies? Interesting. Let's have a look. First soldier we're going to have a look at is a modern soldier. You can see there is some protective elements to this, to the armour the soldier's wearing. She has a helmet and a vest. But nothing else looks particularly strong. It doesn't look heavy, which is really good, so she should be able to move around quite easily. And there is a flag as well to show which country she belongs to. I'm not sure if any of it is made to intimidate. Actually, it looks like it's meant to camouflage. So that's an interesting part of armour. Maybe they wanted to camouflage. I wonder if that was important in Roman times. Let's head back in time again. We have a World War I soldier here. He doesn't seem to have a vest on like the last soldier, but he does have a helmet on to protect his head. His clothes look like he could move around freely and get places quickly if he needed to, which is good. But it doesn't identify which country he belongs to either. And I don't know if it was made to intimidate people, so when they saw him, he would look scary. Interesting. I wonder if he's not meant to be seen so easily then. Let's head back in time again. I've got this soldier. Now I think he is meant to be seen, and I wonder if his armour, his uniform, is meant to scare people when they see him, because it's very different to the last two. Their colours were darker and perhaps more camouflagey. This guy is very bright, and you can see very easily which side he would belong to, especially with his hat. So I wonder if his uniform was really to identify which country he belonged to. It doesn't look heavy though, which is good, and it also looks like he can move around in it quite easily, though perhaps not as easily as the last two. Let's go back in time again. This is a completely different soldier. He is wearing a lot of armour and reminds me a little bit of like the knights and that kind of thing. He's got different weapons as well, so I wonder if his armour is different because his weapons are different. These weapons he'd have to use really close to someone else, so I guess that would mean he would have more chance of being injured himself. That might be why his armour goes all the way down to his hands and all the way down to his feet. It looks like it's made up of lots of tiny pieces of metal, which allow him to bend his arms and legs and run. But it looks quite heavy, doesn't it? I don't think he'd be able to move as quickly as the other two or three soldiers. I think it would be quite hot wearing all of that as well. But I think his robe on top does show us what country he belongs to or what army he's fighting for. And I wonder if that helped to scare some of his enemies. He's also got a belt to carry things around him, which some of the others have had as well. So let's head back in time one more time and let's see another soldier. This is our Roman soldier. He's actually got quite a lot of metal on his body as well. Not quite so much as the last guy. So I wonder if, again, he would have had combat that was really close to like another man. So that would have made, it would have made more sense to have his body protected by metal than for the other soldiers. It looks like he's got a helmet, definitely. He's got a shield. We're not going to talk about the shields today. We're going to learn about shields tomorrow. We're just looking at what the soldier is wearing. So let's talk about that armour. He has got armour made of tiny strips of metal all around his stomach and over his shoulders. These would have been joined together by those tiny fastenings that you can see, and leather straps and laces. The reason they're made of tiny pieces of metal is if that was all one big sheet of metal, it would be really difficult for the soldier to bend and to lift his arms. But if he's got lots of tiny pieces of metal, it allows the metal to move and to bend with the soldier. and still protect him. So that was a really clever invention. We've definitely learned that the Romans are clever people. The soldier has got this helmet, and that would have protected his head from things like arrows, as well as having these, they look a bit like dog ears, but there's pieces of metal attached to the helmet that would have protected his cheeks and his ears during battle as well. All Roman soldiers would have worn a robe underneath their armour because it would have been really heavy because it was made out of metal. And if you had just worn the metal on your skin, that would be really sore if you marched for miles and miles, and it would rub, a bit like when you get new shoes, it would rub on their shoulders and other parts of the body. So they had these robes underneath as a bit of extra padding to protect them. They also had these belts made of gold. I don't know if it was actual gold, but that's what it looks like in this picture. It's a golden belt. This would have given them additional protection, but also it would have made a really loud noise as they walked along, like a jingling and jangling noise. And we've been saying how as soon as you see a soldier, you're afraid of them because you know which army they're fighting with. But actually, as soon as you heard these guys, you would have been afraid because you'd have heard hundreds of soldiers marching with this jingling and jangling sound. So it would have made people afraid before they even saw the Roman army. And finally, we're going to have a look at these sandals. Now, traditionally, I think boots belong with a soldier, but the Romans used these sandals. They were easy to make, and underneath they had small studs, a bit like football boots, but you can't see them because they would have been smaller than that. Like they would have looked a bit like the ends of nails, and they would have been all along the bottom of the shoe, so that the soldier, rather than walking on the bottom of the shoe, would have walked on the metal discs underneath their sandals, and that would have made the sandals last even longer. So they could walk for miles and miles and miles and miles and miles before their shoes ever wore out, which was a really clever idea. I'm just going to show you a couple of other helmets. You might have been expecting something like this. This would have belonged to one of the leaders in battle. So maybe like a general or something like that would have worn this to identify who he was, and the men would have been able to see him really easily. The red part is made from coloured horsehair, and it would have been, you've been very identifiable, so it wouldn't have been a normal soldier's helmet to wear. You may also have seen something like this. This wouldn't have been worn in battle at all. They would have had in Rome feasts and things like that, so important soldiers who had been invited to those feasts, perhaps feasts with the emperor and the senators, would have worn this type of thing as a ceremonial helmet. So we know a little bit more about the Roman soldier and the armour that he would have worn. This is going to be really helpful for us when we come to design our own version of this, because we're going to know how things fit together, we're going to know why they had them, we're going to know why it was important when we make the well, if you choose to make a helmet, why it was important to have those pieces that come down to protect the cheeks and the size of the face. And we know why the body was made of lots of little pieces of metal. We know about those special sandals as well. So let's have a look at what our task is today, because we're going to need to remember these things if we are designing a piece of armour later on this week. Challenge 1 today. There are 3 challenges. I'd like you to choose one piece of armour that you have seen, so one piece that this soldier here is wearing. I'd like you to draw a diagram of it and label it with its special features that make and telling me all about how it makes it useful to the soldier. Challenge 2 is to choose 2 pieces of armour that you've seen the soldier wearing, draw them both and label them. You could do that on one piece of paper with the picture at the top and a picture at the bottom. And then challenge 3 would be to draw a Roman soldier wearing full armour and label each piece of the armour, telling us how it was useful to the soldier and why it was designed that way. There are some websites at the bottom that are going to help you with that, because I'm sure they'll be able to tell you more than I have. What I've told you is just a little bit to get you started. I'm going to show you in a moment an example of something that I have done to help you as well. So if we just have a quick look at that.
Alright, Right, here is a completed challenge 3 example for you to have a look at. I first of all started by writing my title at the top of my page, and then I drew out my Roman soldier, and I was really careful to pay close attention to all the little details of the body armour particularly, and there was some patterning and stuff on the belt that I wanted to include, as well as the helmet. I decided what type of helmet I wanted to make, so I wanted to draw a ceremonial helmet, so that horsehair part is there. And then just around the soldier, I've labelled the different uses for all the parts of the armour. So you've got like sort of the side of the head, the cheek protection area there, that part has been added and I've labelled it. I have labelled why the different parts of the belt were useful, so like there was added protection, but also it made a really loud sound for scaring off enemies. And if you could imagine hearing hundreds of soldiers marching together, jingling and jangling, and you knew they were coming for you and they were the Roman army, I definitely think you would be afraid, because the Romans had the best army. That's why they had such a big empire. And also had made some notes about the body armour and how it had been designed so the soldiers could move around more easily. So this is what we'd like to see from you guys, whether you choose to do challenge 1, looking at one piece of armour in particular. If you do challenge 2 and you have a go at 2 pieces, or if you do challenge 3 and you decide to look at the whole armour that a soldier would have worn. Good luck guys, please send us in some pictures of your lovely work. We can't wait to see them. Bye!